Hey everyone, welcome back to the She Hit Refresh podcast, a podcast for women aged 30 and up who want to fast track their move abroad. Before we dive in, I just want to thank our sponsor, International Living, who has helped us bring this season to life. So they are the OGs of moving abroad. Be sure to check them out. My name is Cepee, rhymes with Peppy, and I am your host. And today we're actually doing something a little bit different from our regular podcast where we interview women who have moved abroad. Today is all about an AMA, an Ask Me Anything. The questions you hear today are real questions that were asked in my last Move Abroad After 30 Masterclass that I ran in November. We had over 600 women join us for that. So if you're curious about what the Masterclass is, let me tell you. My Move Abroad Masterclass is a 4-day live training specifically designed for women aged 30 and up. And what I teach you there is not only how to move abroad, you're going to learn the 4 essential steps to making your move abroad happen, but also you walk away with a proven plan that has helped countless women move abroad. And if you'd like to join us, you are in luck because my next masterclass is going to be at the end of April. So if you'd like to join us, get on the wait list. You can do that by going to our website at shehitrefresh.com/waitlist. And y'all, I want to stress that if you've been thinking about joining this masterclass, my April cohort is the one to get on because not only is it going to be bigger and better and insights that we got from our November masterclass, but also this may be the last time in a while that I'm going to be running this masterclass live. Again, you can get on the waitlist by going to our website, shehitrefresh.com/waitlist. All right, so let's dive in. We got a lot of questions at that last masterclass, but I have selected the ones that come up most often, and I'm going to break them down for you here. Let's start off with an immigration question. So the question is, do I really need an immigration lawyer, or can I do this process myself? This is a great question, and I think the answer I'm going to give here is you don't really need one, but it's really nice to have one. So in my case, for all of the visas, I've been on many different visas here in Spain. I've been on a student visa, a work visa, a non-lucrative visa. And for the student visa, non-lucrative visa, I applied for those myself. So I did not use a lawyer for that. For my work visa, I did use a lawyer, but that's because the company I was hired at paid for that process. So in your case, you can definitely apply for a visa on your own. Really just requires finding what the requirements are. And you can do that by going to the consulate's website of the country you want to move to. Let's use Spain as an example again. If you're moving to Spain, you'll need to look at the Spanish consulate in your home country and look for the Spanish consulate that is assigned to your jurisdiction, to your state, because there are usually multiple consulates for a foreign country in your home country. And each consulate works with a specific jurisdiction. Okay. So make sure you're looking at, because the requirements may be different depending on the consulate. So all that to say, you can do it yourself by finding out what the requirements are and then getting all of that paperwork yourself and submitting it. But this does take research, patience, a good checklist, and like triple checking everything. So you don't need to have a lawyer, but it makes this process so much easier. So I do tell people, if you have the disposable income, using a lawyer can really help you, especially if you're working with a new visa or complex visa. A lawyer can help you ensure that all of your documentation is correct, that it is submitted correctly, and this can help you avoid any obstacles that may come up if you do this yourself and submit incorrectly. That could really slow down the process. So using a lawyer is not necessary, but it is recommended if you can afford to use one. And I say if you can afford to use one because pricing on lawyers can be expensive. I mean, when I used a lawyer, I paid, I think it was 1,000 or 1,200 euros. But looking into those prices today, a lot of lawyers are charging anywhere from 1,500 to 3,500 or more to work with one person to help you with your visa process. So long story short, if you want peace of mind, go ahead and use a lawyer, but it is not necessary. You can definitely do this on your own. Next question is, how do I figure out where to move if I'm not sure yet? Yes, this is a problem. This is a good problem to have, right? These days, it's never been easier to move abroad, which means there are so many options out there, especially if you're looking at different regions of the world, Latin America, Europe, Asia, or even Africa. So really what I tell people to do is start with your lifestyle preferences. If you are someone who does not like the heat, maybe southern Spain is not for you, right? So we need to start thinking about what kind of lifestyle we want to be living abroad. And that includes climates, like I mentioned, but these are other things you can look at. Culture, what kind of culture would you mesh better with? Language, do you speak the local language? Are you willing to learn it? And you should be. And how easy is that going to be for you to learn? Cost of living is a huge one to consider when you're thinking about where in the world you want to move. And maybe also proximity to home. So if you want to be close to home, maybe Latin America makes more sense. If you're located in the US or Canada, proximity doesn't matter, then other places of the world are a great choice too. So these are just some of the things to think about, but I know there's a lot of news articles out there talking about the best places in the world to move to. And just because those are listed as the best places doesn't mean they're the best places for you, right? A lot of times on those lists, Switzerland is number one or in the top 5. And to be honest, Switzerland is a beautiful country and I've been there many times. My soul would die if I lived in Switzerland. Everything is just too structured and perfect and a lot of rules and things close early and people are inside early. And it's the complete opposite of the lifestyle and culture of Spain, which is a much better fit for me. So although Switzerland may have the best quality of life on paper, for my preferences, Spain is a better fit. So I just want you to think about those things when you're trying to identify a place that you want to move to. Probably the first thing we should be looking at, is there a visa that will allow you to live in that country long term? Okay. That's actually going to be the biggest one. So I would start with lifestyle preferences and viable visas. And that makes me think I do have a lot of people who come to me and say, hey, I love England, fell in love with it, or I studied abroad there, or I've traveled there, really would like to move there from the US. And I tell them, England is really hard. The UK is extremely difficult because there are not a lot of viable visas for the average person. So it makes it very hard. And so I tell them, I really think that you should look at a different country as a means to moving abroad, because the UK, you may not find a path that's going to work for you. All right. So these are the things to consider when you're trying to see where you want to move abroad. And I would say once you have thought about a few places, I would make a short list of anywhere from 1 to 3 places, and then use that as a focus to dive a little deeper into each of those options to see which is the best fit for you. This is something that we will be talking about too in the masterclass, other factors to take into consideration when choosing the best place. So another question here is, what are the biggest mistakes people make when choosing a visa or destination? A mistake that people make is really falling in love with a country before checking to see if a visa is possible. I think sometimes it's also good to flip that, to see which countries have visas that you could qualify for, and then look at those countries and see which would be the best fit for you. Visas is something that we also dive into in depth in my masterclass, and I'll talk about the different types of visas, because no longer do you need to marry a foreigner, get transferred with a company, or teach English to move abroad. There's tons of visas out there, and I really think there's a fit for everyone, from a student visa to a work visa, digital nomad visa, non-lucrative visa, freelancer visa, and more. And I should probably mention here, I should probably plug my book, because I wrote the #1 visa guide for Europe. If you're interested in moving to Europe, check out I'm Out of Here, an American's ultimate visa guide to living in Europe, where I break down the 19 easiest countries to move to in Europe based on viable visa options. So you're going to learn about all the visa options in those countries that are very accessible to the average person. And there's over 50 visas listed in the book with a lot of details. This is a digital book. I update it once a year with the new information. Visas come, visas go, visa information changes. So I like to keep the guide up to date. And if you purchase it, you get lifetime access. So even if you're not ready to move abroad right now, if you purchase it, you'll have access for all the future updates that I make. Okay, next question is about work. So can I take my US job with me when I move abroad? So I know that the work piece is often the biggest challenge for people who want to move abroad. It's the case with my refreshers that I work with. Can you take your current remote job abroad? Well, the answer is sometimes. It really depends on your employer. And it also depends on if you can find a visa that allows you to take this job abroad. So the biggest challenge with taking your job abroad is that if your company does not have an entity in the country you want to work in, then you and them will be breaking local tax laws and labor laws if you are working from a foreign country. So that's a big reason why companies say, no, we can't let you go work in France. We are not set up to have you work there legally. So when that happens, then if you want to stay with your employer and take that job abroad, you're going to have to find a solution. And this is what we do in the masterclass. This is really my approach to finding your path to moving abroad. There's always going to be challenges, right? The work piece is a big challenge, visa challenge. But I like to tell people we need to have a solution-based mindset. Let's not dwell on the challenge or the problem. Let's find a solution. So in this case, if you'd like to take your current job abroad, you can talk to your employer about becoming a contractor. Okay. If you are a W-2 employee, if you become a contractor, a 1099, then technically your company is not responsible for you abroad. So you could take that job abroad and your company is not responsible for you paying taxes there or being compliant with local labor laws. But that doesn't mean you can just get up and go. You need to see if there's a visa there that is viable for you. So that would be a digital nomad visa. You'll have to check and see if there's one there and if you meet the requirements. There are companies called employers of records, and these are companies like Native Teams, Deal, Remote, that can work as a middleman between your company and the country you want to move to, and they can help make you compliant there if you'd like to stay with your company and work with a third party who can help you with that bridge or that solution. So that's something to look into and to think about as well. Now, you may be surprised to hear that there are companies out there that allow their employees to work from anywhere. I actually have a list of 25 work from anywhere companies. So I'll drop that in the link here of the show notes. And also in my masterclass, you have the opportunity to purchase a list of 100 work from anywhere companies. So these are companies that already have that remote part worked into the company culture. So I definitely recommend targeting those companies. And these companies still may have some restrictions in terms of maybe you can only work from Europe, or maybe you have to be within a specific time zone. But they do give you the flexibility to be out of the US and be in a different country. And again, we talk about the work piece in depth in my masterclass, and I give you some different options, not just about taking your current remote job abroad, but we talk about different ways to work and live abroad. All right. Another work-related question. I know a lot of you out there are thinking this same question here is, what if I don't work in a remote friendly field? How can I pivot? Yes. So not everybody has a remote job right now and needs to find a way either to get into a remote sector or to use their transferable skills to a remote role. So this is a big one. And I think there are a lot of opportunities now because it has never been easier to work remotely, right? The workforce has never been more remote than it is now. But I think one thing that you have to do is first see if your role can be done remotely. I think sometimes we assume, oh yeah, this role can't be done remotely because we're just used to doing it in an office. But actually, a lot of jobs are remote now. So first check and see what is out there. But then if you find that you're going to have to transfer your skills to a different type of role or just broaden your search there, really start identifying what those transferable skills are. And also looking to see what is that demand and what is that cross section there. You definitely do not have to go back to school to upskill or reskill. I hear people saying, well, I think I'm going to go back and get a degree in XYZ. You can definitely do that, but you can also teach yourself skills or take short courses to learn the skills that you need. This is what I did. I taught myself social media marketing and copywriting and community building. And that's how I got into the world of remote work back in 2017. So there are ways to do this on your own. You don't have to make a huge investment to make a pivot. One resource that I want to point you to that you've heard me talk about if you're in my Facebook group or in any of my programs is Hannah Dixon's free 5-day VA challenge. This is a free training that a friend of mine, Hannah Dixon, runs that helps you become a virtual assistant. So allow you to really untether your life where you can work remotely. And I love her program. I actually took her program myself back in 2017. It's one of the tools that helped me get remote work. What I love about this training is that you'll do many things throughout the 5 days with Hannah, but one thing you'll do is take a look at your transferable skills and see how you can use those in the remote world or in different roles and sectors. So check it out. You can find the link in the show notes, but Hannah Dixon's 5-day VA challenge is coming up in April as well as my masterclass. All right. A question here. Did you sell most of your possessions to move to Spain? And are there things I should bring with me? First, I just want to say, I recommend do not take everything with you. You don't need to. A lot of apartments come furnished abroad. So you don't need to be bringing your bed and your couch and all the things unless there's a really good reason to do so. So I sold most of my furniture, most of my things. I did keep some things in storage. I'm very fortunate that my uncles have a furniture store and have a warehouse and gave me some space to save some things. So I've put more things in storage than I probably would have if I had to pay for my own storage. But I have a lot of like sentimental things from my parents. I don't know, a bike that I have still not brought to Spain 10 years later that I probably need to sell. But I think in terms of things to get rid of and take with you, things to think about here are things you can sell, things you can donate, things that you can store somewhere, but also why not lend things? When I first moved, I lent my Vitamix to a friend and she held on to that until I was ready to make a decision about that. So you don't have to get rid of everything, but also you shouldn't take everything with you. But I guess this leads me to saying that downsizing and decluttering takes a long time. It takes a lot longer than you think. So this is something that you should really start on now, even if you're not ready to move abroad in the next 6 months, year, 2 years. Do not leave this for the last month or two of your move abroad, because this not only takes a physical toll, but it's also emotionally exhausting and mentally exhausting because you're making a lot of micro decisions. And also you're going to have to make some decisions based on things that you have that are sentimental. And you're going to be going down memory lane too with some of these things. So give yourself time and space to do this, walk away from it, come back to it, and not do it in a rush, because then I think that's where we make some decisions that we might regret. So some essentials that you'll want to take with you abroad are going to be, of course, clothing, any toiletries that you really like that you can't find abroad, sentimental items, and then, of course, anything related to your hobbies. So I would tell people you don't need to be taking pots and pans and kitchen utensils, but if you are a huge cook and you like to cook a lot at home, then maybe you need to take your pans if those are something that you're using on a daily basis and it's really important to you. I did not bring really anything with me other than clothing and a few books and a few pictures or photos that I wanted to hang. And also a tip I would give you is you don't have to bring everything at once. For me, I brought what I could on the plane. So I had, I think, 1 or 2 check-in, with me. I went back to the US once a year to visit, and I would bring some more things with me each time. All right. And also storage unit. It's not bad to get one of those, especially if you just want to do that for the first year. You don't have to make all those decisions before you move. You can make a lot of them, and whatever's left that you have, you can put that in storage and maybe make those decisions when you go back home to visit friends and family. Okay. I hope that helps. Next question. Oh, I love this one. So how do I rebuild my social life abroad? Especially and then we have fill in the blank, in my 30s, in my 40s, in my 50s and beyond. I love this question because I think community is so important when you move abroad. People really make the place. So this is something I think you should prioritize when you move abroad. And it's important to think of making friends like dating. It takes time. It takes initiative. It takes effort. It takes practice, right? So some of the suggestions I give you here to rebuild your life abroad, you can actually start doing this before you move. So I would highly recommend tapping into Facebook groups. We have She Here Refresh, our Facebook group, but also there's a lot of Facebook groups out there for the specific city and country that you're moving to. So you can look up expats in Paris. One community I love is Girl Gone International. And this is a community just for women. And they have chapters around the world, and they have Facebook groups for each chapter. So you can look up Girl Gone International Berlin or Girl Gone International Mexico City, and you'll be connected with other women who are either traveling or living abroad. And it's a great way to already start making friends before you go. Now, after you move, as I mentioned, you do have to be proactive, take initiative, and go out. You're going to have to go to meetups. I think that's a great place to meet people. And these communities like Girl Gone International, you can see in their Facebook group what upcoming meetups they have. But you can also go to meetup.com to see what's happening in your area. Another thing is, you're going to have to say yes to invitations. In the beginning, you're going to make a lot of acquaintances. You're going to be meeting people. They're going to ask you to hang out. And maybe you're not going to feel like it, but I would really encourage you to say yes, even when you want to say no, because you just never know where that experience could lead you to, right? Maybe you're going to meet their friends who you connect with better than them, or you just never know, right? There's apps like Bumble BFF you can use, organizations like Internations, and there's other things you can do like joining a gym or joining a local dance class or just leaning into your hobbies to start meeting people there. But just know you are never alone, even if you're making this move by yourself, like I did when I was 35. You're never alone. There are tons of other people, especially foreigners who have moved abroad just like you, who want to make friends. So I wouldn't worry about the friends piece too much, but do know it does take effort. It's not going to happen on its own. All right. So question number 8, thoughts on buying property to live in permanently. Oh, so we could have a whole podcast on purchasing property. But number one, I would say when you first move abroad, do not be buying anything. That's my suggestion. I highly recommend when you move abroad, rent. Rent and get a feel for your new city, the country. Just make sure it's a good fit for you before you invest any time, money, and resources into buying something permanently. So get a feel if this is where you want to stay long term. Also, get a feel for different neighborhoods. So maybe you really like a certain city, but you need to know what part of the city you really want to live in before you want to purchase anything. And that takes time to get to know a place. I think that could take at least a year, if not longer, to really get a lay of the land, depending where you're moving to. And that's really it. Take your time with this. You do not have to purchase anything right away. Rent for a while before you purchase. And then before you purchase, it's very important to just understand how things work in the country you're moving to. Things work differently than they do in the US. So just understand about everything from landlords' rights if you're going to be renting your place out at some point, but also what property taxes are, how working with a real estate agent works, what the fees are for purchasing a property, all of that. Do your due diligence. Next question. How do I stay motivated when the move abroad feels overwhelming or far away? Yes. So this is going to happen to everybody. A move abroad is so exciting. And when we are on that high thinking about this life change, we can feel invincible and it can really build up a lot of momentum that carries us very far in this journey of having to figure everything out. But you're also going to have many times where you feel completely overwhelmed with all of the logistics, the decisions, the micro decisions, looking at all of your options. It's tiring. There's a lot of paperwork. There's the visa. There's figuring out the jobs, the planning, feeling guilty and fear about the decision you're making. And so it's not only about the logistics, but there's going to be a big emotional side of leaving everything familiar behind. And also, if you're doing this on your own, there's this added pressure that we put on ourselves of having to make the perfect decision, the right decision. Like, I don't want to make a mistake. So there's a lot that goes into this that's going to make it feel overwhelming at times. And I'm just here to tell you, it's okay. I want to normalize that this journey is not just all fun and games. There's going to be difficult parts of this journey. And that doesn't mean it's time to give up. It just means, okay, now we're in a low part, but this too shall pass. Okay. And this is all part of the process. So what I do tell my masterclass students, and we do talk about mindset in the masterclass too, because I think it's a very important thing to touch on that a lot of programs don't lean into. But what I tell my masterclass students is that everyone hits a wall at some point, right? Like a move abroad is actually not easy. It's pretty hard. Don't get me wrong. The steps are simple, but actually moving abroad, doing this, it's really hard. And so it's going to feel hard along this journey. So number one, I just stress the normalizing, like it is okay. Let's not get stuck or dwell on the overwhelm. Okay. We can have our pity parties. I definitely did that in my journey, but then we just need to start getting into that problem solving mindset. Okay. And just tackle things one by one and not get overwhelmed by the big picture. We just take small steps because it's those small steps over time that are going to lead to the big life changes. Something else that I think is really important to help you when you feel overwhelmed is to have a space that you can go to and just get things off your chest or to share or just feel like you're not alone in this process. And so I think Facebook groups that I mentioned, like She Hit Refresh and the other expat groups, are a great place to go and find like-minded people who get what you're going through. Because it's a little different if you share this with friends and family who have no idea or maybe who don't even support the decision that you're making. And that can make us feel even worse about what we're doing. So leaning into spaces that empower you and that get you are very important. Other communities, I definitely want to recommend my Refreshers Lounge. We are a community that helps you fast track your move abroad by giving you that ongoing support, guidance, resources, and of course the community of women who are actively making their move abroad. And last but not least, I would just say, you do not have to feel ready to make this move. And in fact, I don't think you're ever going to feel 100% ready. Okay. So ready is not a feeling. This is what I tell my masterclass students. Ready is a choice. Okay. So you choose, am I ready to make this move or am I not? We don't rely on our feelings because feelings can be deceiving, right? Feelings are very ephemeral and they are all over the place. And in one day you're going to be on a high from, oh my God, I can do this, to what the F am I doing here? Right. So don't rely on your feelings. This is a decision we make that we are ready, and we just tackle this one step at a time. All right. We just have a few questions here. The next one is about healthcare. What kind of healthcare can I expect abroad? And can I still get coverage with pre-existing conditions? Yeah. So I'm going to speak about Spain and Europe because that's what I know best. But I think I'm just going to generalize. If you're coming from the US, anywhere you're going is going to have better healthcare in terms of affordability than the US. So I would not even worry about having access or the price point too much. Healthcare abroad is very affordable. Depending on where you go and what visa you're on, you may have access to the public healthcare, but more than likely, you're going to have to buy a private healthcare. And that's what I have here in Spain. And I pay about, I think it's about $60 a month for private health insurance, which is incredible. I actually just went to the doctor today for a routine checkup. Didn't have a copay, nothing out of pocket. It's just paid with my monthly plan. Now, in terms of pre-existing conditions, if you're able to get on the public healthcare system, then they cannot deny you for pre-existing. Doesn't matter. You're in. Everyone has access to that is eligible. If you have to have a private plan, most countries, you can find a plan that will accept you with pre-existing conditions. You may just have to pay a higher premium. And sometimes you may have to work with an insurance broker to find a plan that you can qualify for. But you can already start doing this research before you go. And as part of your visa application, many visas are going to require you to have a private healthcare plan in place before you go. So start looking around. In my masterclass, we talk about healthcare as well. And I give out a few links there for companies that you can tap into to get some rates and start looking at this. Next up is, what are the financial surprises of moving abroad, like taxes or banking? Oof. Okay. Again, I could give a whole podcast episode just on this. Taxes is something we talk about in the masterclass as well. So if you're interested in that, please join us there for more of a deeper dive. But I guess here from a high level, for US citizens have to file their taxes in the US forever, no matter where you live. So even if you move to another country, you still have to file in the US. That doesn't mean that you have to pay. That is all dependent on many factors. Okay. But just know you always have to file. When you move abroad, depending on if you're considered a tax resident in the foreign country, you will have to file there too. So you will have to file in two countries, possibly, but that doesn't mean that you have to pay in both countries because of two things. One, the US does have tax breaks for US citizens living abroad. And also the US has tax treaties with certain countries, okay, to help avoid that double taxation. So that's something to think about there. But some surprises, when I moved abroad, I didn't realize that I had to pay capital gains in Spain on a property that I sold in the US. So that was a surprise for me that I learned the hard way. But it's things like that you can learn about speaking to an expert. I highly recommend speaking to Bright Tax, which is an expat tax expert that we partner with at She Hit Refresh. And I'll drop the link below. If you reach out to them, let them know that She Hit Refresh sent you over. Banking. Oh, there's so much I could say about banking. So I'm not going to go into all of that right now because it's going to sound overwhelming. We have a lot of resources about this in the lounge. But banking, I will say, definitely keep your US bank account. Do not close that. Keep your US credit cards for sure. And when you move abroad, if you're going to be living in your target country for most of the year, you're going to need, or I highly suggest, getting a bank account there too. Okay? So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully you have found this AMA helpful. The last question is, what's one thing you wish you'd known before your first move abroad? Luckily, I'd spent a lot of time abroad in my 20s and in specifically Spain where I moved to. So there was a lot that I already knew and understood about the culture, about finding housing, a lot of those things there. But one thing I guess I wish I would have known is that it can take a long time to find your people. All right. I think making acquaintances is pretty easy. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a lot of other people out there looking for friends. But to really find your ride or dies, that can take longer than you think. And in my case, in Spain, it took me 2.5 years to really find that circle of people that I'm still friends with today, many years later, and I will continue to be friends with throughout my life. But at some point I was thinking like, wow, where are my people just not here? So it takes time, and that's okay. One other thing I would say is that move abroad, it's an emotional roller coaster. So once you move abroad and do the thing that you've been dreaming of doing, that doesn't mean that your life is going to be perfect and everything's going to be great. You're going to go through a whole nother roller coaster of emotions because one, you're adjusting to a new country. And of course, that makes sense that there's going to be a lot of things you're going to be doing for the first time. And that can be very stressful. But there's other things from loneliness to frustration to homesickness. There's just so many things that you can't even imagine yet of what you're going to go through. And that's normal. A move abroad is not a magical place. It is still your life, and life has its ups and downs and highs and lows, right? So those are two things I wish I would have known. All right. And that's a wrap on this AMA. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and if you have more questions, I highly encourage you to join my next Move Abroad After 30 Masterclass happening at the end of April. You can get on the wait list on our website. I will be leaving a lot of time in those 4-day trainings to be taking your questions live. Plus, we just have so many resources in addition to the 4-day live trainings that I think will answer most of your major move abroad questions. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and leave feeling like a move abroad is even more possible for you. If you're happy with what you saw, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a question or comment because I would love to hear from you. If you're ready to take action on your dream to move abroad, be sure to grab my Visa Guide to Europe. It's your roadmap to over 50 viable visa options in 19 countries. You can grab the link below in the show notes. And don't forget to get on the wait list for my next Move Abroad After 30 Masterclass, a masterclass for women age 30 and up, which is a step-by-step training to help you fast track your move abroad. And grab the link in the show notes as well. And last but not least, a huge shout out to our sponsor, International Living. Thank you so much for making this season possible. Until next time, ciao for now.